Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk doing, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I
button?
thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? Hey, Corey, I hope you're feeling better than I am.
Well, I don't know if that's even possible, but I hope I am too.
Yeah. I worked out today at St. Patrick's Day, and I was over at Mountain Tough working out, and I can't lift my arms right now. I can barely turn my head, let alone sit up straight.
You couldn't even get 2 sentences into a podcast episode without a rabbit hole.
What do you mean? That has a lot to do with elk
What does
hunting.
St. Patty's Day have to do with
Nothing.
you working out, you being sore, elk hunting? It's
Wow.
like, just throw in this detail here that's going to throw everybody for a curveball.
All right, so I skipped the detail. Everybody else in Montana, I have no idea. You'd swear we were in Ireland or something. Everyone here, St. Patrick's Day is a big deal. So they're all out drinking green beer and whatever, corned beef and cabbage or something down at the pub today. And I was the only guy working out today.
Man. So that's why you threw it in there, because you wanted to make sure that people knew you worked out on St. Patty's Day, which is a
Maybe.
rare thing.
Me working out or St. Patrick's Day?
The combination.
Yeah, there'll be like a bunch of drunk leprechauns rolling through here pretty soon. But oh well. How's life in Idaho? It snowed in Montana last night. I woke up to 4 inches of wet, heavy snow this morning.
Man, we've gotten probably a combination close to 2 feet of snow in the last 3 days. Fortunately, It's been that 34, 35 degree snow, so the ground's warm and it hits. Yesterday, I had to plow the driveway again yesterday. We had a foot of snow and it was wet, horrible snow. But
yeah, my wife will probably have to blow the driveway this afternoon. I'm doing podcasts all day. Between you and Brandon Maddox from Silencer Central. Do you have a suppressor silencer?
I do.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
'Cause my buddy Brandon will make sure you got one. So yeah, today's podcast day.
Nice.
If I can stay awake that long after that workout they put me through.
I thought workouts are supposed to energize you.
Well, I think you reach a certain age where it has the opposite effect.
No matter what you do, you need a nap.
Yeah. I have noticed that more and more these days, my wife says, you look like you need a nap. I don't know if that's a polite way of saying, boy, you're getting old, man. But
I think it's daylight savings time. That just every year, and it seems like it's worse this year, but it's taken me over a week to get through that.
yeah, it does me too. I wish we'd just stay on one or the other, right? I don't really care which one. Stay on one or the other.
Yep.
And let's call it good. But should we start them off with something really uplifting, or should we just feed them the bad medicine to start with?
I don't know, maybe we could tease something really uplifting and save it for the end to keep them hanging on. Nah, let's give them something uplifting. What do you got?
Oh, something uplifting?
Yeah.
Well, I was the MC at the Elk Foundation banquet on Saturday night, and we had our best event ever thanks to a bunch of dedicated volunteers. We had 33 volunteers show up to help with the event. And we raised a pot full of money thanks to a bunch of people who, I don't know if they just served them good whiskey this year, but man, for supposedly the economy slowing down, they didn't get the memo on Saturday night.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I go to Reno on Thursday. I'm doing their event down there, and I'm hoping I can coax just as many people out of the same amount of money. I tell them when they come in, my job is to make sure that you leave here penniless. Don't bring any money home.
Spoken like a true accountant.
Yeah. I give people the opposite of the advice I give them in my accounting life. Spend all your money, spend it here. So, no, that was a lot of fun, and we got to you always get to meet some interesting people there at these events, and got to meet some people who have been quiet, big donors of RMEF for a long time. I didn't even know who they were, and they came up to me afterwards. I said, that presentation you put up there about all that, 8 million acres of whatever? I didn't do it. The regional director he had Missoula put together a big 7-minute video of highlights and stuff the last year. And, that 1,000,003 acres of new and improved access, that is why we've been this level of donor for as long as we have. And I'm like, all right. Cool. I just made my day. So
that's awesome.
And there's this is kind of banquet season for RMEF. So if you get a chance to go, folks, go donate to the cause. And if you're interested, go volunteer. It's a ton of fun. Our committee is a really fun group of people. In spite of whoever they have as the MC, they probably we might want to change the MC of this outfit, but right now they're stuck with me because no one else has stepped forward. So what do you do?
And all you have to do is go to rmef.org, and at the top there's a button that says Get Involved. Click on it and scroll down to Events, and you can find a big game banquet near you.
Yep. And someone also, since we're on that website, one of our emails came in this last week. Someone said, it'd be nice if there was a way that RMEF could notify us when there's issues and make it easy for us. Well, if you go to that same website, rmef.org, and over on the left, there's a tab that says Get Involved. And when you click on that and you scroll down, it says Key Issues and Advocacy. And when you click on that, it says Take Action. And it lists all these issues. And on the bottom, there's a little button that says Take Action on this issue. Take action on this issue. So I'm glad that person brought that up because we, I think, have somewhat neglected pointing that out before.
Yeah.
And every month you can sign up for their monthly advocacy newsletter. And there's all kinds of good stuff there. So, when you have an event that turns out great and everything is, exceeds expectations, it's hard not hard. It's easy to be excited about that.
Yeah.
So, that's what I did all weekend. That's what I get to do this weekend. It's always fun.
Yeah. It is that time of year.
Mm-hmm. So, now you want to know what I've been kind of looking at in my legislative updates?
Oh, yeah.
This one comes out of the great state of Utah. The beehive state. They're busy as bees down there, coming up with new legislation of how to lay the leather to the non-resident.
Uh-oh.
Anyone surprised about that?
I was going to say, what are they can't be taking away more tags.
No. They probably are going to want to sell more tags to non-resident based on what the fee increases are going to be.
Oh,
yeah. There's a new bill in the legislature that would give the Division of Wildlife Resources the authority to double the non-resident fees on everything. The hunting license, actually, I think the application fees would go. Application fees would go up from 16 to 32. Hunting license would go up from 120 to 240.
Literally doubling.
Yeah, your limited entry bull elk tag would go from 1,050 to 2,100.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Wyoming.
yeah, now that you mention it, it seems didn't Wyoming kind of reset the bar last year?
Isn't it like $2,100 or $2,200 for a special elk keg there, or $2,300 something? It's
Yeah. By the time you paid all your transaction fees and everything last year, if you went in the special draw, Wyoming, it was just under $2,100. So
Utah's
not bad.
thinking we've got big elk, so we can charge that much.
Yeah, and we have 75 years worth of non-resident applicants in the pool. Maybe it's only 50 years. I haven't looked at it this year, but if we got that many people in the pool wanting to jump in, why would we not crank up the price?
Yeah, what are they going to do? Drop out?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we got them all. We got them all bought in on the point scheme here. Yeah, I know they'll sell every tag if they do. I guess there's two steps here. One, will the bill pass? If it passes, will the department max it out to whatever level they can under the new authority? But if they do, it's really getting frustrating. And people say, well, what about your state, Randy? Yes, my state of Montana, we have the greatest disproportion. So if you took the ratio of the non-resident elk fee and divided it by the resident elk fee, we'd have the highest number of anybody. So I got to preface any of my commentary on the fact that I live in the state where we ride on the back of the non-resident horse, and no one I know plans on getting off anytime soon.
It seems like once you get on those horses, you can't find a way to get off.
Well, that's it, right? We have legislators who look at this and say, well, the non-resident can't vote, and the resident does vote. Who am I going to raise the fee on?
Yep.
The resident. And this happens in all other 49 states I'm a non-resident of, even in my home state. So I wish it wasn't that way. And I've heard some people say, well, that's good. Fewer people can apply. There's already too many people applying. I don't look at it that way. I look at it that, you know what? We're going to lose eventually and some would say, well, Utah is kind of the tip of the iceberg. You can't count that. But as every state starts raising these fees, we're going to lose a lot of maybe folks who would become elk advocates, public land advocates. We might lose that younger generation, because I can tell you what my wife would have said back when I was 28 years old. And I said, hey, honey, what do you say we cough up a few $1,000 for a Utah elk tag? She'd say, get your mother to cough that up, pal. Get your gear and get out of here. I hope you got a good tent. You'll be sleeping in it for a while.
That's the problem. And that's something that I've been trying to point out for years here in Idaho is everybody puts in a system that doesn't have points, and they don't draw. And so they start blaming the system and saying it's not fair. I've been putting in for 10 years. My neighbor's never put in before he put in this year, and he drew the tag I've been putting in for 10 years, so it's not fair. Well, that's actually the definition of fair, is that everybody has the same chance every time they put in. Well, that's their argument, so they get a point system put in. And then they realize 10 years down the road, they still haven't drawn that tag that they think they should. And the reality is their odds have went from 2.3% to 2.45% over that 10 years. Well, the person who's starting out at 0 is now at 0.5% and is never even going to make it to 1%. And they're like, this isn't fair. All these people are in there. My odds haven't gone up, even though I have all these points. So we need to restrict how many people are able to put in. Now we raise the fees and we keep people out. And there's no way to win. There's not a way to win with point systems unless you're trying to raise revenue. And then there's some pretty good strategies there.
Yeah, Wyoming wrote that book.
Yeah.
Until I look at my own state of Montana. The legislature's in session right now. I used to try my dangest to get a resident fee increase because it's embarrassingly low here in Montana. Yeah. And part of the reason was, one, I thought it would put a greater perceived value on what opportunity we have. I don't like being dependent on non-residents, because what happens up in the legislature when you become as dependent on non-residents as, say, Montana has, when you go to the legislature, every one of those legislators say, oh, well, we can't have this policy or we can't have that policy because it'll affect non-residents, and that's where all the funding comes from. So we end up with this weird thing that goes on in the coffee shops and bars of Montana, where you get guys who threaten to beat me up because I said we need a $10 increase in our hunting license. And then these same guys complain that the non-residents and their, if you want to call them agents, the outfitting industry that represents a lot of non-residents, well, they have all the say up in Helena. Well, yeah, you don't get it both ways. Okay? When we have these issues being discussed in legislatures, if you want to complain about your fee and you want to keep it that low, then your agency is going to be dependent upon non-residents. And when something changes, whether it's a tag cut or a reallocation of opportunity, all of a sudden the legislature is going to pay a ton of attention to how that impacts non-residents. And so I don't know what the answer is, because I'll be honest with you, Corey, I've almost given up trying to convince here in Montana that we should have a more reasonable fee. And I'm not talking about increasing it on kids or elderly people. Pretty soon people will be like, well, no wonder you want to exempt elderly people. Newberg, you're getting close to that age. But I think for those of us in the middle, a $20 elk tag is for, whatever we get, 11 weeks of season. I mean, actually 12 if you count the muzzleloader season. Like, come on, $20. See, that's you just laughed out loud. It doesn't pass what I call the laugh out loud test.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I'm sure we got Montana listeners who are like, someone needs to go down in Bozeman and thump on Newberg or to get him to quit talking about raising these resident fees. Well, if people in Montana knew what they pay as residents in, say, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, those states would teach their residents how to write a check. But we've had it so good for so long, and back to the old, I don't see anyone in Montana getting off the non-resident pony when it comes to funding. All I see them doing in Montana is putting another horse in the yoke and hitching them onto the wagon and say, let's go, boys. And it's going to be another non-resident horse that gets hitched to the wagon. And I don't know what that solution is, because I know people in other states who advocate, just like I do, and some of us here in Montana, we advocate for a more reasonable more reasonable resident fee, and they kind of get run out of town also. So I don't know how you change that fee structure thing when you have a resident population that can vote and a non-resident population that can't vote. It's the path of least resistance among legislators.
Yep.
So
it's just hard when nobody wants to see their fees go up. And I think probably the biggest thing that if we could convince, or we could at least educate sportsmen on where the money goes. So many of us look at the agencies and we just see waste. And it's like, why give them more money? They're just going to waste it. And so I think if, the agencies did a better job, A, in their spending, B, in educating what they're spending on and being able to justify it, I think sportsmen would get on board with it and be okay with some fee increases, especially if you're talking $20 to $30. That's a 50% increase, but it's only $10, and who's not going to pay an extra $10 for an elk tag or a hunting license or whatever it is? But when the majority of the people who are paying that don't feel like the agency's being wise with the money, they don't want to see any increase.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is true that the agencies have a tendency to not want to they don't want to talk about the budgets and reasons for fee increase, because let's face it brings out the critics.
Yeah.
But our game wardens, we have so many openings in Montana at FWP because we're just not competitive in any type of salary. It's, the people who've been there a long time, they're going to tough it out because they're vested in retirement. But I don't know what that means in the long term. If we're going to let agencies be that dependent on non-resident fees, where does that lead us? I don't really have an answer to that, but it definitely creates a lot of chatter and conflict between the resident, non-resident hunter.
Yeah. Well, and the hard part is the resident or the non-residents, the average non-resident can't afford to pay $2,100 for a elk tag in Utah. So now you're getting rid of the average hunter who wants to go and experience it. And there's always going to be somebody who can afford it. So they're always going to sell all the tags.
Oh, yeah, that's not the issue.
They're always going to sell out. They're never going to come up short on revenue projections based on tag sales. So the state's looking at it going, we're going to sell it regardless.
Yeah.
They're looking at their bottom line and thinking it's a win. But for the average out-of-state hunter, they're the ones that are getting priced out, and they're the ones that aren't going to be able to go. And pretty soon, we're all going to be in that same boat that it's not worth it. And you hate to see hunting go the way of the dollar, especially when it's not out of necessity. Yeah, there are certain times when you've got to make a fee increase, but Utah doesn't need to double their tag fees. There's other issues they need to address far before the revenue they're bringing in, because they bring in a lot of revenue and they have a lot of tags in a lot of different pockets going a lot of different directions.
Yeah. So I do worry long term, if non-resident elk hunting, a lot of elk hunters who, advocate for public lands, advocate for conservation, support the groups, if a lot of those get priced out, what do we end up with as the population, the profile of what the average non-resident elk hunter is?
Yeah.
I just don't think that's good for hunting in the long term. So
we just need to speed up the process of getting elk in every state so that every resident has an opportunity to hunt elk in their state.
That is one of the strategies that the Elk Foundation had when I was on the board, and I think they still have today. The Eastern Elk Initiative was one of their big strategies. And you look, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Missouri. We're
getting there.
Yeah, so the elk herds have been established. Now it's up to those states to follow the Kentucky example. Say, all right, how do we figure out a system within the confines of our society and our economy and every, land use patterns? How do we get 10,000 elk here like Kentucky has? And so I'm glad you brought that up, because, the seed stock is there. Let's get moving forward.
Yeah. And we hear, the non-residents from, say, somewhere like Massachusetts, who says, why should I be a member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation? Mm-hmm. Here in 5 years, am I even going to be able to hunt elk? Am I going to be able to go out of state and hunt elk? And my state doesn't have elk, so why should I be a member? And I think that is the answer is right there in the question. That's why we need more members in more states, so that we can expand these opportunities, so that we can grow it, so that residents in more states are able to hunt. Because when you look at most of those eastern states, well, not most of them, but a lot of those eastern states don't even offer a tag to a non-resident, because it's so limited that they're protecting their residents. And that's the way it should be. I would love to be able to have an opportunity to hunt elk in every eastern state, but it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime as a non-resident.
No, not going to happen in my lifetime. I'm sure of that. And, pricing and all that kind of drives the demand side, or as a way to try figure out how to get more revenue out of the demand side. But you touched on what I call the supply side, right? In every transaction, I don't care if we're talking wildlife, we're talking non-resident, resident allocation, talking about, business. there's a supply and demand side of every discussion. The supply side is how many elk are out there on the landscape. And if using in the example of if you were an elk hunter from Massachusetts, you should want more elk on the Colorado landscape, more elk on the Wyoming landscape, more elk, Montana, Idaho, the list goes on. Because the more elk, I'd rather have 10% of a bigger number than 10% of a smaller number.
Yeah.
Whatever each state has as their allocation. So for me, I try to focus on the quote unquote supply side. In other words, the available opportunity of tags. And I think that's what gets lost in a lot of these discussions and rancor and argument about it is, if we had 50% more elk on the landscape and 50% more non-resident tags, it'd put an awful lot of salve on the wounds that people want to say are there. So,
yep.
But anyhow,
yeah. Hey, you want to hear something really interesting?
Absolutely.
So we were talking about bonus points, and it reminded me that several years ago, Idaho, the legislature had some bills trying to get bonus points for Idaho. And so I being an engineer and loving spreadsheets, thought, well, I'm going to give them some statistics that they can actually chew on. So, and there's, you look at, and I think every state's gone through the process of, if you go just straight bonus points, where each year you apply, you get an extra point. And that just increases your chances. It never gives you a guarantee, but it increases your chances every year. And I think that's where most states probably start out. And then they get in there and realize, hey, it's not working. I'm not getting my tag like I thought I would. I want a guarantee after a certain amount of time. So then they split it into a bonus, half preference, something like what Utah has or other states have, where half the tags are given to those with the most points that apply. And then the other half are just randomly given out based on how many points you have. You get extra chances. So looking at, multiple different options. But if you just look at a straight bonus point system where every year the applicant gets one more point and their chances double after year 2, they triple after year 3, keep going up. So I took actual hunts that were limited entry hunts in Idaho back then with the actual statistics for how many tags were given out, how many people applied, the draw odds, and then considering that no new people got in each year. So this is just best case. Like if there's 50 tags given, that pool decreases. The number of people putting in is going to decrease by 50 every year, which we know is not the case. I also didn't assume any increase in the number of people applying, which is also not accurate because when a state goes to a bonus point system, the number of people getting in at ground level goes up considerably. So odds are going to go down from where they were without bonus points. But just looking at baseline, best case, if we had a bonus point system. So in a hunt that has 10% success. So in this one I looked at, there were 80 tags given, 800 people applying. So 10% success rate in drawing that tag every year. So it's possible somebody could put in for 100 years and never draw that tag. Somebody could put in 10 years in a row and draw it every year because it's just random there. Right. So after year number 2, if you have 2 points after 2 years, your odds are going to be at 10.53%. After year number 3, you have 3 points now. Your odds are at 11.09%. Year 4, you have 4 points, you're at 11.70%. And year 5, with 5 points, you're at 11.35% draw. This is a 10% draw odd hunt, which when I look at hunts and say, my chances are 10%, I'm thinking there's a chance.
Yeah.
When you look at, let's back up on that. That same hunt, somebody who gets in on year number 2 and they get 1 point. So year number 2, they have 1 point. Their odds are at 5.26%. Year number 3, the person who gets in is at 3.7. Year number 4, a new person getting in is at 2.92. Year number 5, a new person getting in is at 2.27. So we've taken new hunters after 5 years and changed their draw odds from 10% to 2.27%. And we've taken these loyal people who have put in every year for the last 5 years, we've changed their odds from 10% to 11.35%.
Woohoo.
Yeah, so we haven't
Yeah.
really helped the loyal applicant, and we've absolutely hammered the new hunters from getting in. That's on a 10% draw. You look at something that's 3%. So this hunt was 15 tags, 500 people putting in. So their chance every year with random draw is 3%.
Oh, man, I can't even imagine.
I'll skip all the years and just go straight to year number 10. You've been putting in for this hunt 10 years in a row. You have 10 bonus points in that draw.
So eyes on the ground floor.
Yep, ground floor. You go into year number 10 with 10 bonus points. And instead of that, that horrible little 3% draw you had 10 years ago, your draw odds are now an astounding 3.45%. 3.45 for 10 years of loyalty, you've gained 0.45%. What really hurts is the new hunter who gets in at year 10, their odds are 0.35%.
Yeah.
So they've taken a 10x deduction in their odds while you have gained a 10% increase. So it hurts new hunters. It hurts recruitment. It's not going to reward somebody. If you look at something that has a, say, 30% draw, I can see bonus points working for something like that because you're going to go through those applicants a lot faster. You're going to, after 5 years, your chances are going to basically double. You're going to go from 30% to 60%. So something like that, it might work. But you get down under 20% draw odds, which most hunts in most states, other than some antlerless hunts in different states most antlered hunts in most states are below 20% drawed. Yeah. And when you look at the fact that you aren't gaining anything after 5 or 10 years, and you're absolutely hampering any new people from getting in, bonus points are not the answer. And then people say, well, what about preference points? It gets worse because you're taking half the tags now. So those new hunters getting in are half the draw odds of what they would be. And so, it's just bonus points are not the answer to improving your odds. The best thing you can do is increase the number of tags that are available. And the way you do that, put more elk on the mountain.
Yep. I wonder if people ever get tired of us saying that. But if they do, that's just too bad. That's part of what you got to listen to in this podcast is we are about more elk on the landscape. And, your examples you just walked through there, Colorado is changing their rules in 2028 where they were 100% preference points. In other words, he or she with the most points gets the tag. And that system started in 1988. So in 2028, that system will be 40 years old. I think it was started in 88. In 2028, they are going to take half the tags and pull them out of a true preference point system and roll them over into a bonus point system. So you explained how if you go to true preference, it's even worse than bonus point.
Yeah.
So Colorado, it sounds like, is saying, well, we realize this was a mistake, but we got too many old farts vested in the preference point system, so we can't junk the whole thing, and we can't go back to random. So we're going to modify it, take half of the tags, which is a slight improvement. But the point is, once these states start down those point systems, like you and New Mexico have resisted, and Alaska, it's really hard to turn it back.
Yeah.
Everyone feels that they were vested in something, and damn it, I better get my elk tag before you change that, or
That's
else.
Right. So here's some more statistics for anybody that's a geek like I am and like statistics. But
you must miss your engineering days, Corey.
I love data for some reason, but. So that 3% drawed hunt, 3% drawed, so 15 tags, 500 people putting in, which is a pretty realistic in Idaho. Mm-hmm. Some of the higher sought after hunts, that's not unrealistic. So after 5 years, just a straight bonus point program, somebody who's putting in first time after year 5 has a 0.64 chance. Someone who's got 5 bonus points has climbed from 3% to 3.19%. So not even worth doing. So that's straight bonus points. Well, what would happen if we did like Nevada and we squared the bonus points?
And
So
we
you
do in
put in-
Montana.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you put in for 5 years in that same hunt and you get 25 chances, right? So that
Yep.
same hunt, 3% draw odds, now somebody who's putting in the first time after year 5 is at a 0.13% chance. So their odds went down considerably more. Somebody with 5 points their points are getting doubled or squared, so they have 25 chances, they've now bumped up to a 3.26% chance. So again, no help there. So then we look at a half bonus point, half preference point system. Same 3% draw odds. After year number 5, the people who are in the max point pool. So maximum points, they have 5 points. This is straight preference. Everybody who's got the highest points are the ones that get that. After 5 years, you have a 1.82% chance of drawing in the max point pool.
People who advocate for these types of systems obviously aren't good at math.
And then
or
you have
stat.
a 1.52% chance of drawing in the general pool based on your 5 points. So they take these, instead of having 15 tags, now they have 7 tags in one, 8 in another. You're competing with all these same people who have 5 bonus points now, and all these people have 5. So the preference is just divided among those 7 tags. Now with the same number of people, your chances are in half basically because they took half the tags. So without increasing tags, any system you look at, bonus point, preference point, combination, squaring your points, anything, you are not going to gain any measurable advantage by having a point system.
Yeah.
So for the 8 states in the West that have point systems, it's a Ponzi scheme. They're looking for your money.
They are. They are money making operations, Corey. Oh gosh. I thought we were going to try get them excited today.
This is. So you're excited because in New Mexico and Idaho, you still have a chance.
Right. And in 2 days, this podcast won't be published in time, but we gave them enough heads up that they shouldn't miss the New Mexico deadline.
Yep.
April 1st, we've got the deadlines in Colorado and Montana. So by the time this podcast drops, you'll still have time to get in on Montana and Colorado.
Yeah.
And then Utah will be later in April. Nevada.
April 15th for Utah?
Somewhere in there. I should look it up. I don't.
I might have it here.
Yeah. I thought it was the 25th this year. For some reason, I thought they moved it back because they're trying to get their final counts and everything in before they approve the final numbers. Nevada's in early May. Oregon's mid-May.
So this is just coming from AI on a Google search here, but the deadline to apply for Utah's big game hunts, including elk, is April 24th, 2025 at 11 p.m. Mountain Time.
All right. See, people are like, Newberg, you said the 25th. You're trying to slip us the Mickey there. And sorry, folks. But yeah. So the idea, I don't care what state it is that has elk or what state you live in, more elk on the landscape is the answer.
Yep. That's the only answer that's going to work.
No. When the Elk Foundation started in 1984, there were 550 to 600,000 elk on the western landscape, none east of the Mississippi, really. Now, there are 1.1 million elk, and a good number, in the tens of thousands, the Mississippi. So,
well, and you just look at the work that they've done, and we're talking 1982 to now. So what's that? 43 years, 40 plus years.
Yeah.
To double the number of elk. Every one of these states can double the cost to hunt elk overnight. So
yeah.
we've got to be proactive here, and we've got to be working, because if we don't and the number of elk aren't increasing, the tags are going to be increasing in price and decreasing in availability, especially for non-residents. So that's why it's so important as non-residents that we get involved and we work to increase those numbers.
Yeah. You brought up your deer hunt, that you had all these Colorado points for deer.
Yeah.
You might want to take some of these people up. That we got a bunch of emails from people saying, well, Corey should apply here.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't looked at the same draw odds that I'm looking at, because some of the hunts they're telling me I should apply for take like 30 points instead of the 19 that I have. So I still don't know what I'm going to do there. I've got it narrowed down to what I can draw.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
Some guy sent me some pictures of some great big bucks. He said, Corey should burn his points in this unit. He'd have enough for the archery tag. But I don't know if you want to miss. And the archery tag is
probably 0 points.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless it's an Eastern Plains hunt, I think most of the archery tags are, 0 points in Colorado for that September season. And that's the other thing is,
you don't want to miss elk season.
Mule deer don't bugle. They don't bugle. So why would you give up elk hunting to hunt mule deer in September?
Yeah. Yeah, some guy sent us the name of another movie where Clint Eastwood blew up another train bridge, so that part must have made the cut when I got out in the weeds last time. I told my wife, I said, yeah, I feel bad today on the Elk Talk podcast. I really got out in the weeds with the blowing up the train bridge story. Yeah, I can't believe you told that to people. I don't know, honey. It just kind of came out. I made mention of it, and Corey wanted to hear the story, so...
Yeah, you can't talk about trying to blow up a train bridge when you're 7 years old and just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, but I guess we could start a playlist of scenes that blow up train bridges based on these emails there. I didn't know there were so many movies where they blew up train bridges. I only got one channel that came out of Winnipeg. So if it wasn't on CBC, we didn't get to watch it. But one guy is wondering what set of binoculars he should get as far as magnification and field of view. He said, I either have binoculars that are underpowered in the open country, or they seem like overkill when I'm in the thick country.
Yep.
Are you an
that's
8
how
or 10
magnification
power
works.
Yeah, that's the physics of light transmission.
I think for the most part, 10 power is probably a good middle of the road bet. It's a little overkill for archery hunting and thick stuff. It's a little underkill if you're looking at 1,000 yards in open stuff. But I think for the majority and the typical hunter who doesn't need to count inches and points, that just wants to be able to see animals at longer distance and be able to confirm something and scan in the thicker timber, I think a 10 power is good. And I prefer a 10 by 50, 10 by 42, just, you can usually get them a little lighter, a little smaller, but your field of view is going to be a little bit more limited. So a 10 by 50 is a good option.
Yeah, your field of view, folks, if you want a relative scale, you take the objective lens of, Corey said 10 by 50, that's 10 magnification with a 50 millimeter objective lens. In other words, the big end of your binos. And if you do 50 divided by 10, you get a 5. And everybody says you should have at least a 4 if you want good field of view, good low light capability. So if you get to a 10 by 32, which some people make that, all of a sudden you're down to a factor 3.2 using that methodology, and like looking through a drinking straw.
Yeah, and you just aren't gonna see as much in your scanning, and you're gonna have a really tough time seeing things as the light goes down, because the more light you let in, the clearer you're able to see, and the longer into the evening you're able to glass. So that magnification is important, but the objective, that size of the end glass, is also important. And just think of it, if you have if it's 10 power and you have a 32 millimeter objective on the end versus a 42 versus a 50, they're going to be bigger, and they're just going to allow you to see more in that picture window when you're glassing.
Yeah. So depending on the situation, I use an 8x40 or 10x42, just because of weight.
Yeah.
Base is the biggest thing. Some guy, he sends us an email. I don't know if this is bragging or I think it's bragging. He's from Arizona. He said he drew the tag, the most cherished archery tag in Arizona last year. It cost him all of his points, but he had the loyalty point and the hunter ed point, and he jumped back in this year, and he drew the same tag again this year with 2 points. Clean living will do that.
We're just talking about bonus point system, and they've got one there, but fortunately, they've got a split system of preference and bonus, and everybody has a chance every year. So, congrats to him.
He asked, he's like, I'd like Corey's opinions on the moon phase this year for when I'm going to be there archery hunting. So, I don't know if you...
Tell him to visit elk101.com and check out the new article on which week to hunt elk in 2025. Because I break it down every single week from the 1st of September all the way into November. Every week, talk about what the elk are doing, what they're looking for, what the moon's going to do, how it's going to affect them, when the rut's kicking in, all of that. But I will tell you this would be a great year to have an elk tag in Arizona during the archery season.
Well, that guy's got to be pretty excited. I mean, those are really low odds. He told us what unit it is. It's like, holy Mackinac, that guy, he's got connections. He was playing the wrong game that day. He should have been playing the Powerball or something.
Yeah.
But we got another person who has been applying in multiple states and has yet to draw a tag and wants to know, is it worth it?
Man, did my wife send in that email? Because she asks me all the time, how long have you been putting in? And you still haven't drawn any of those tags? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, if I have to expend this much effort to get a single tag, because so far this year, he's applied Wyoming General and Arizona, he didn't draw. Will apply in New Mexico, Colorado, and Nevada. If I have to expend this much effort to get a single tag every year, and the hunt may be marginal at best, why is it worth it? I guess... and he signs off the application blues. I mean, I can say I get it and I understand, but I live in a state where I get an elk tag over the counter. So
on the years we don't draw anything, we still get to go elk hunting.
Yeah, because like him, I already struck out in Arizona. I fully intend I'm going to strike out in Wyoming. I expect to strike out in New Mexico and Nevada. So,
man, where's your optimism, Randy?
Colorado. I'm going to go be your camp cook, and I'm going to buy an over-the-counter elk tag while you're out chasing deer.
That might not be a bad option, depending on what unit I end up with. But, and what season.
Well, that's true. If it's not a unit that has a second or third rifle season, I'm out of luck.
Yeah. Or if I put in for a fourth season.
So his challenge to us is, okay, guys, make me a believer. I guess that comes down to all the times when we talk about strategy, right? Don't apply for the things that are always 2% draw odds.
Yeah.
You're not going to draw very often. You know, here he says he's in for the Wyoming General, depending on if he's in the west, the south, or the east general application. He's got pretty good odds. Even in the random draw, he's going to have probably better than double-digit odds on that one. And so that is part of the strategy. In New Mexico, use your 3 choices. Make your first choice really difficult. Make your second choice a little bit easier. And make your third choice any elk hunt you'd be happy with. because New Mexico looks at all three of your choices before it goes on to the next person. So, I going back to our supply side, right?
Yep.
If we had twice as many elk on the landscape, it'd be a whole lot easier to draw some of these tags. But
Well, and I think, it's always funny when somebody emails us and they ask the question, is it worth it? Because that's really, that's up to you to decide. What's your goal? Like if your goal is to shoot a 400-inch bull, you might be better off saving your money and spending it somewhere different than the Wyoming General tag. If your goal is just to go on a hunt and have a phenomenal time calling bulls in and hopefully get a chance to shoot a respectable 6-point, then it's worth it. But it's like you said, you have to have a goal established. Then you have to come up with a strategy that matches that goal. And I think there's still several places, regardless of what your goal is, that I think it's realistic, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. I have my fallback state here where I live, but if I lived in, say, back where I grew up in Minnesota, I would definitely be applying in every state. I'd have a fallback option. As long as Colorado had over-the-counter tags, I'd be doing it.
Yeah.
And I'd look at Montana and say, well, I know I can draw there every second or third year. I'd be doing it. I might have some tougher hunts, but that's just how it is. There are no units with an average age class of 7-year-old bulls with 95% public land
that and have 100% draw odds at 0 points.
Yeah. Every one of those units have less than 2% draw odds, even for residents a lot of time. So I get that's what people want out of a hunt, but
I quit chasing that a long time ago, and I still want a quality hunt. But it's more about the experience. I want to go someplace where there are fewer people, where there maybe are more elk, and there might be a chance of finding an older class bull. But I don't put score on it. I don't set unrealistic expectations. And then I know that there's a game that has to be played to try to get a tag in most states that that matches that criteria. So
So
I've got an email here to read for you. And this one says, Randy. What is going on in Montana? I have been putting in with bonus points and preference points for several years.
Okay.
They changed a few years ago and I lost all my points. So now I'm starting back over. I've heard you say it's better or easier to draw a tag, an elk tag in Montana, with 0 points than 1 point. I have 1 point this year. Can you please explain how it's easier to draw with 0 than 1 point? And why would that ever make sense?
Okay, we tried to cover this last time, and maybe that's what generated the question. I didn't do a good enough job. But so in Montana, we have 17,000 non-resident big game combination tags. Deer, elk. They call them combination because you get upland bird and fishing and a bunch of other goodies in there. So between the deer elk combo and just the elk combo, elk with your upland bird and fishing, we give away 17,000 of those. And we only let you get 3 points as a maximum. So the first 75% of those, which is, I think, 12,250, if my math is right, go in this preference point draw where we start with people with 3 points. And if you do a party app and maybe you're at 2.5, blah, blah, blah. We go through that pile of people. And last year, anyone with 2.2 to 3.0 points as either your points or your party average had 100% draw odds. Anyone from 2 points to 2.2 points. So just this little narrow window. How big of a party they had to do to get that low in the rounding of their average, they had 90% draw odds. So now we take the other 25% of the tags and we start at the bottom of the pile. Okay. Whatever that is, 4,750 tags. And anyone with 0 points, we start working through that pile. And if we get through all the 0 to 1 point people, Then we go up to the folks with between 1 and 1.99. Well,
So
we never have any.
Why do we start at 0?
Because we have legislators who write fish and game laws. So when this
What's
change,
the point of having a point system if you're going to start with 0 in the point pool?
you would have to ask the knucklehead legislators who told us we didn't know what we were talking about when we went up and opposed this bill. We're like, hey, you realize what this means, right? And they're like, that's not what that means. Well, the legislative legal department, after the bill passed, right? What was the one bill one time they said, well, sometimes you just got to pass it and see what's in it, or whatever. It's like, where these knotheads came up with this idea, beyond me. What it was supposed to say, but not worded properly, is anyone who doesn't draw in the 75% draw, whether you were at 0 points or your party had a half-point average or 1.5 average or 1 point, all the rest of you who didn't draw in the 75% were supposed to be put in a random draw. So what they said is anybody who doesn't have a bonus point is put in the draw for the other 25%. It's like, hello, there are people with 1 point, Oh, you get out of here. You guys don't know what you're talking about.
Why can't somebody with your clout and your pull go to the legislature now and say, hey, let's modify this so that it says what it really means to say? Why hasn't that been changed? I mean, we're in year 4 now?
We tried. And you want to know what happened?
Yeah.
We should have just left that box of poop stinking over in the corner. Because when we tried, now if you're a non-resident who signs on with an outfitter and you don't draw, you get to buy 2 points. So you get to jump right over the 1 point pile.
So they changed it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't change it to fix the problem. They changed it to add to the problem. So now, instead of saying, well, the people with 1 point are really getting hosed here, we should change this whole wording so that it includes the people with 1 point and 0 points and 2 points potentially. But no, we're just going to skip over those people with 1 point and say, well, if it doesn't help them, then let's just give everybody 2 points that signs up with an outfitter. So now the people with 0 points are still benefiting. The people who hunt with an outfitter are benefiting. But those non-residents who just put in for 1 year are actually doing themselves a disservice.
Yep. So if I was a non-resident, I wouldn't pay Montana that $100 for that point. But tell them to stick it in their ear. Because the 0 point holders, the people between 0 and 0.99, had a 57% chance of drawing that combo tag last year.
And what did the people with 1 point have?
0. Null, empty set, zilch, whatever you want to call it. They have the same odds of me swimming to Mars tomorrow. That's how good of odds they had last year. And it's probably going to be similar this year. So, yeah, I get why the person emailed. And I wish I could tell you we could fix it. Montana, here's the danger in any legislature, but I observe this more with Montana's legislature. When you go to solve a problem in the legislature, they usually make it worse. They will stand there and argue with you that it's not a problem. And then they'll go and have a drink that night and come back the next day and say, but I have a better solution. And somehow it passes.
So is there a way for the person who sent in this email that has 1 point, can they delete their point and enter with 0? No. They're stuck with 1 point.
Well, they should just, now they kind of got you, right? You got to buy another point to get your way out of the 1 point sandwich.
Yeah. What about is there a leftover list in, if they're return tags and...
Yeah, there is in Montana. There's two of those kind of lists. There's one where people, it takes me 45 minutes to do the Montana application video, whereas Idaho and New Mexico is like 6 minutes. And so in order to get in the limited entry draws in Montana for, say, some of the real premium archery or rifle tags, first you got to get your general tag. So if you don't clear that hurdle, you're not even in the limited entry draw. But since we cap non-residents at 10%, most people who clear the first hurdle and get their general tag end up flunking out over in the limited entry draw. Well, there's a box you can check that says, if I flunk out in the limited entry draw, I don't want my general tag, turn it back in and give me most of my money back. So we get about 3,000 of those every year. And so then, on April, whatever day they do the draw, first they do the general tag draw for the combo tag. Then they do the limited entry draw. And then all those people who ask for a refund and say, take my general tag back, then they do a third draw. It's called the reissue draw. So anybody who was in the 1 point sandwich or in the 0 point pool that was the unlucky 43%, you might draw a tag in what they call the reissue draw.
And is it based on points? Is the 1 point holder still getting...
I think the reissue draw is based strictly on random. I could be wrong on that. But because I'm not a non-resident, I don't apply in there. I should know that, but I don't want to confirm one way or the other without knowing for sure, Corey. But
yeah.
So here's the confusing part, though. Usually our results come out on April 12th to 15th. It'll say, big game combo, unsuccessful. And people are like, oh, crud, I didn't draw. And then below it'll say, big game reissue, successful. They're like, well, what happened? Did I draw or did I not draw? Well, if at the bottom of your results it says big game reissue, successful, that means you did draw, but you drew one of those tags that some non-resident turned back in. And then we have another process that over the course of the summer, non-residents can turn their tag back in and get, I think, an 80% refund through August 1st. And then after August 1st until season starts, you get only a 50% refund. Well, then you can go and sign up and say, I want to be on the... I don't even know what they call it.
Leftover
return tag list. And so they randomize that. I know that one is not based on point. So they randomize it and they say, well, you're number 42. You better hope that at least 42 tags get returned by non-residents. And if so, they just go, you're number 1, you're number 2, you're number... So I am trying to figure out what they're smoking up there in Helena to come up with something that convoluted. And you know who gets all the ornery phone calls? Some poor person working at Fish, Wildlife, and Parks licensing division in Helena has to put up with irate non-residents. And it's a bunch of really dim-witted legislators who won't fix this problem. And every time we say, let's work on this, let's simplify this, they just make it worse. You know, don't you think it would be smart to just say, instead of having all this reissue thing, let's do the limited entry draw first. Let everybody do the limited entry draw. And if you draw a limited entry tag, we just automatically give you one of the 17,000. Then we don't have this whole reissue thing.
Because how many limited entry tags would there be for non-residents in Montana? It can't be that many.
No,
it'd put a little dent in the 17,000 licenses
at the most.
Yeah. So you give those out, and there's still 16,000 licenses left for everybody else.
Right, and then we don't have to do this. Well, I didn't draw my limited entry, so give me a refund. It's like I've talked to so many legislators about that, and they're like, "Well, why do we really care?" Because we'd like to treat the non-residents in some sane manner so they know what they're getting for what they're buying. They just look at me like I'm off my rock. And there's a few residents who are like, good for them. You know, we get to keep a refund fee on all those reissue tags. Yeah, okay, whatever. That guy who wrote that email, I should just call him and say, I apologize.
Apology accepted. I'm the one who wrote the email.
Oh, you did?
Well, I'm the one that I just put in for Montana. And I have 1 point. And I'd really like to hunt Montana this year. And I realized that I have no chance. So
Well, here's what you do. You buy a point this year. Or when you fill out your application, since you already have 1 point, say you want another point.
Yeah.
That way, if you don't draw on that reissue thing, next year you're going to be at 2 points and above. So you have a 90% chance next year.
But I don't want next year. I want this year. Which is why I bought a point, not realizing that 1 point actually hurts you to have. I should have bought a point last year. I didn't buy a point last year.
Oh.
Or maybe it was the year before, but I just thought all I need is 1 point.
Yeah.
Before I realized. So, yeah.
All
lesson
right.
for everybody listening. Either put in for 2 years.
You paid $100 to have 0% odds.
Exactly.
You said, man, for $100 I can go from 57% to 0. That's a deal, man.
That makes here we go. Bonus point systems. Can we talk about all the ways they don't work?
Oh gosh. Well, I hope you draw, Corey.
Yeah, I'm not hunting with an outfitter, so I miss out on the 2 point option. I stuck at 1 point. I can't delete my point, so I'm just stuck there in the middle. So my only hope is the reissue or the leftover.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, or you could just call some poor person working the phone bank up there in Helena and just read them the riot act. That might make you feel better.
No, I pretended I sent an email, or we got an email, and it was from me, and had you explain it so that it didn't make sense to me, and I appreciate you doing that.
Well, dang, I didn't see that email. No wonder I didn't see it. I thought, well, it's just in this big pile of them that I didn't notice along the way. But
that's me sitting here feeling sorry for myself that I can't draw Montana elk tag this year. And I was going to go and hunt with Bryce from Peaks.
Huh.
Yeah, he invited me to come hunt with him.
Yeah. Yeah. The other day we told the world that I strong-armed I don't want to say strong-arm, that's a bad term. I was talking to the Mountain Tough folks, and they said, you ought to tell people that, promo code Elk Talk will get them 30 free days over at Mountain Tough. I think Bryce the other day when they took me out and they drove me in that obscene, ugly looking Cybertruck that they're giving away. Have you seen that thing?
I have seen it. I saw it in person at Hunt Expo down in Utah.
That thing is uglier than a mud fence. And it's like, where did you guys get this thing? Well, then they started explaining to me, look, we're talking about how no matter what part of society you're in, there's technical innovations that kind of push things along. And you may not adopt it right away. You may not like it, And in the hunting space, we have this same thing. So David Brinker and I went out and they filmed he and I talking about just all kinds of innovation, like digital maps, high performance clothing, equipment that'll makes people way more effective at distances we would have never dreamed of before, whether it's rifle or archery. And so in that process, we did that commercial, and I like, if you guys are going to make me ride around in this just foolish looking truck, the least you can do is give the Elk Talk audience a discount. And so I don't know what the discount, I think it's 10% if you use Elk Talk.
Wow.
At peaksequipment.com. So
now that's good on any. That's people are going to come back and be like, oh, it didn't work.
Yeah, well, that's what they told me. They're like, consider it done. As quick as we get back to the shop, we'll get it signed up.
Excellent. So that's good on anything like teepees, sleeping bags, trekking poles, gators, headlamps, everything.
That's what I was led to believe. If not, call them up and say, hey, Corey and Randy said promo code Elk Talk was going to save me a bunch of money.
Don't throw me under the Cybertruck. You're the one that said it.
Are they going to have, when you come up hunting, are they going to hunt out of that ugly looking thing?
Not if I have any say. Hopefully they've given it away by then.
Yeah, I don't know what they told me they're doing some giveaway that everyone who shops in the store gets. I don't know. I should know, Corey. I sat there and got filmed for an hour and ended up not having any comprehension. I was just staring at that truck. They're probably gonna give me the mean mouth here for being down on that truck that they have. But I get the whole technology thing. I think it is a good parallel. I'm not sure.
So they're using the Cybertruck to illustrate the technology that's been advanced in the automotive industry to compare to the innovation that they're doing with their products.
And we were out in the woods, and David told the speaker, take us to Dairy Queen in Bozeman. He took his hands off the wheel, and it drove us to Dairy Queen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've got a Cybertruck on order now.
I'm holding on for dear life. I'm like, he doesn't have his hands on the wheel, man. We're going to be down in the rhubarb and run into the car in front of us, and it'd see a car in front of you, it'd start tapping the brakes, and
wow,
he'd tell it to change lanes, or I don't know how he did it, but it'd change lanes. It's like, I'd know how, my dad would have loved that. He could have never got a DUI then because he wouldn't have been driving.
So I just went to peaksequipment.com and I put a Solitude 4 TP in my cart, and I entered the discount code ELKTALK, and it deducted 10% automatically right from that order.
I knew those guys were honest, straight shooting fellers. They wouldn't lead us astray like that.
It worked.
Yeah. I mean, we need to talk to a few other joints and get the promo code action going on here over at the Elk Talk. I know Elk Talk 15 will save you some money on the new pricing at Outdoor Class. Let's see.
Yeah, and Outdoor Class, is it like $69?
Yeah, they got
it's
the
like
price
super cheap. Yeah.
So they got the price by
$30.
Whole
University of Elk Hunting online course. You get all of Randy's. You've got rifle elk hunting. You've got antelope. You've got all sorts of stuff.
Teach you how to not die out in the cold.
Survival stuff, cooking stuff. Got Remy's mule deer stuff. So all of that, you get full access to everything for $69 or whatever. It's super cheap.
But promo code ELKTALK, you get even an extra 50. Oh, promo code. They said it's promo code ELKTALK 15 because you get 15% extra. They said since we dropped the price so much, we can't give 30% more. We already dropped it 30%. So
I'm going to jump out there and see what's that get them at like $59.
I don't know. I don't know what's 15% of $70. $10.50. Yeah, you're right.
We're really good. We're good salesmen here. We don't even know what the deals are, but we're going to find out.
I am the worst salesman, Corey. I was doing these seminars in Bend, Oregon last week, and people were asking me equipment questions, and my answer was always, well, what do you currently have? They just look at me like, that's not the answer I wanted. I wanted to go buy a new rifle or buy new clothes or buy. Like, all right, I need to work on my pitch here. But
so it says it's $99, but then you go to the subscribe, and they've got it discounted all the way to $69.99.
And you're at outdoorclass.com, right?
Yep. And if you don't enter Elk Talk because it says that code has expired. But if you put in Elk Talk 15 and hit apply, $59.49 for all of that content.
What a country.
What a country. Huh.
Oh, I know where Elk Talk works also. At Go Hunt, right? If you use promo code Elk Talk, they'll put $50 in your gear, in your store credit.
The gear shop?
So, all the heck.
Where else can we send people to save money?
I don't know. The crew here, they see on my whiteboard, it says never pay full retail. And I try to live that and try to bring that to the audience. I don't know. People ought to send us emails. Hey, can you get a promo code with this outfit and that outfit? We'll try.
Yeah.
I can't promise, but we'll try.
All you had to do is ride around in somebody's Cybertruck for an hour and give you a discount to share with all your friends.
Yeah, if I got to drive around in another Cybertruck to get the audience a 15% discount, I'm a man of high standards. I don't know if I'd drop that low again.
So they're giving away, Peaks is giving away a Cybertruck. Like
that's what they said. How could you afford to give one of those away? Or maybe you can buy them cheap now that, what's his name? Elon is working for the federal government now. Maybe they're just like, someone says Oprah used to go on her show and say a car for you and a car for you. Maybe that's what Elon's doing these days. I don't know.
So this is a Cyber Beast. I'm just on their website looking. It's $150,000 value. and they're giving one away. So says every $50 spent equals one entry. So use code Elk Talk. It saves you 10% for every $50 you spend. And this goes, they're going to have it in hunting season. If I go there and they make me ride around in that, I don't think we can hunt in it, but it goes until December 1st. So every $50 you spend, you get an entry in it, and then they're giving it away, it looks like.
Well, where I grew up, if you pulled up to the pub in Big Falls, Minnesota in a Cybertruck, they'd beat you up before they'd let you in the pub. What kind of operation we got going on here? So, there you go. I should quit mean mouthing the cyber beast or whatever it's called there. I don't know. I'm about, all this new technology that's in the hunting space. I've been a pretty early adopter of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you're ever going to get me to do a no hands kind of hands-free. Let the vehicle drive itself.
That's a trust thing. I just don't have enough trust in.
No, I don't either.
The consequences are too big.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work.
Right. And I know I can drive in snow better than that thing probably can. I don't care what they say. Those computers, they don't know chicken poop from chicken soup about driving in deep snow. So
well, the good news is if you win the Cybertruck, you can always sell it.
Oh, I know. I don't think we're guys like us. I don't think that they want us in on that. I don't think it looked very good, so I don't got to worry about selling it. But
then you could put in for Utah for like 6 more years.
Yeah, there you go.
At the price it's going to.
I go down to Utah DWR office in Salt Lake and say, I'll trade you this truck here for an out tag.
Yeah.
Straight across.
And they'll probably say, well, you owe us another $38.
Yeah. Anyhow, go to Peaks Equipment. Is that their website? Peaksequipment.com, right?
And it's PEAX.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to call around and see if by next podcast I can get our audience in on a little more discount action.
Be awesome.
So.
And I'll try it out. I'll verify it works.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Have we covered enough today, Corey? I mean, we haven't really got out on the weeds about blowing up train bridges, going to jail in Mexico, and none of that stuff.
No, it's been pretty much elk related today.
Yeah, gosh. We'll have you do the next one all by yourself. You can do an elk calling seminar or something, because we know me doing an elk calling seminar, you may as well just go down to the library and buy a book on knitting, and you get as much information about elk calling as you would from me. But
yeah.
All right. Well, until the next time, I guess. Hopefully Jennifer doesn't have to shovel too much snow for you today. Kim, she's been buzzing me here about something. Bring gas for the snowblower. It says when I come home, I'm supposed to bring some gas for the snowblower. That's a bad sign. When I left this morning, I said, whatever you do, don't go out there and blow that snow. I'll take care of it when I get home. Well, that woman's got ants in her pants, man.
What she has is history in her back pocket. And she knows that when Randy says, I'll do it when I get home, that it's as good as a book on knitting at the library.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yesterday I got in a handyman mode, and I don't ask me why. But, well, she said that the dryer kept giving her an error message that clean the filter, and she pulled the lint trap out and cleaned it. And so we've lived in that house for 20 years, and I thought, well, I better go look and see how things are doing over here where the dryer vent goes out the side of the house. Oh boy, that doesn't look good. That's we got a rat living in there or something. So I walked over to the shop. She didn't even know I had a shop vac. That was a big mistake, because now she's got all kinds of ideas of what I should use that shop vac for. So I slide the dryer out from the wall, climb up my little step ladder, shimmy in there. She's like, well, don't you need some tools? I'm like, yeah. I had her bring me a whole fist full of tools, even though I didn't need any of them to unhook the dryer vent. But I wanted her to think I was really making things good here.
That you knew how to use a tool just in case.
Yeah. Pretty easy to use a regular blade screwdriver on a little bit of hose clamp that holds the dryer vent. So I told her, I said, plug that shop vac in there, and I'd hook the hose up where it blows out instead of pulls in. And she hit the button on that thing, man, and there was dust and what do you call the stuff that comes, lint that comes out of the dryer? Oh my gosh. It was snowing out there. And so I did that for her. And I cussed a little bit and acted like I got hurt climbing in and out of there.
And told her you saved yourself probably $600 or $700 by doing it yourself.
Oh yeah, I
and
told her,
being so handy.
the house probably would have burned down. I said, you better go check that what you call it, signal on your computer on your dryer there. And she's like, oh, it doesn't say check filter anymore. Yeah, so
What?
I kind of kicked back the rest of the day. That was my deed for the day, and I don't know why
You're going
I
against
did
your
that.
own advice, Randy.
I know.
It's going to backfire.
I know, but I saw that it was going to snow, that it started raining a little bit yesterday evening. I'm like, man, if it's going to snow, I better act like I'm at least some use as a husband around here.
So what you did was you set yourself up to be able to fix the lint issue in the dryer to prevent being asked to shovel snow, knowing that if you did something as miraculous as fix the dryer, there's no way she would ask you to do something handy 2 days in a row.
No, never. I'm sure she called her friends. Like, I don't know how he did it. This guy's a complete illiterate when it comes to handyman. He fixed the error code on my dryer by putting a shop vac in there. So,
man,
yeah, I know.
You are exceeding expectations on all fronts, Randy.
Yeah, my brother's coming out next month, and that is always a problem because he's a logger. He's built his own house. He builds log homes when he's not logging. And my wife has a list for Jason that's, I don't know, at least as long as your arm. She wonders why Jason only comes out every 5 or 6 years. He feels like he gets put to work. Well, he lied. Well, he rats me out. He's like, well, Randy could really do this. I know he's got the talent. I'm like, shut up. And yeah.
You might tell your wife not to mention the dryer fixing incident to Jason.
Yeah, probably not.
It'll save both of you a little bit of...
Yeah, probably. But anyhow, when he comes out in April, she'll have all kinds of things that she wants done, and Jason will start laughing. Like, he knows how to do this. It's hard on my marriage for about another month or two after that, because she's like, well, Jason said you knew how to do that. Why didn't you tell me that? Because I fish. I hunt. I don't do handyman. I pay the man. That's why we have that saying here at this house, pay the man. We hunt and fish. So, yeah, I better get home with some gasoline. And
so your wife can blow the snow.
Yeah. Well, you know what her dad he didn't have a job from like age 35 to when he died at 92. And he used to say it takes a real man to get his wife a job, and he was serious as all get out. I'm like, did your dad just say that? She's like, he always says that. I'm like, well, he lives by it too, because I got the dearest mother-in-law in the world. Most people don't have a good mother-in-law. I have like the world's greatest mother-in-law, but she was married to this guy who, they say don't speak poorly of the dead. But he used to brag that his wife had a job and he didn't. Like, I'm never going to be that guy. I'm going to have a good enough job that I can pay the handyman. If it wasn't a Sunday, I would have called the handyman to blow that dryer out. But who are you going to get on a Sunday to come blow your dryer out, right?
Man, nobody is handy as Randy. That's for sure.
And now she knows I have a shop vac, so she's got couldn't we use it for this? And couldn't we, those ledges up there, that we can get the ladder out? I'm like, that's how people get hurt climbing up those ladders like that. Yeah. So I'm glad we're wrapping up, Corey, because this is like
too.
message number 2 during our podcast. Where are you? Need gas.
You better go.
I better go.
Go save the day, Randy.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, my theory is I looked at the weather and right now, look, it says it's 41 degrees in Bozeman. I told her that snow will melt before we get it blown out of there.
Yeah.
So,
but you told her that in November.
That's true.
It'll melt in April. Why blow it? It'll melt on its own.
Absolutely. Yep. So, all right.
Go get some gas. Go and bail your wife out by creating work for her.
I better do that, or I better pay the man, one or the other.
Yeah.
All right, Corey. Have a great day.
You too. We'll catch everybody on the next one.